Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, coming to you live from the Firstpost studios. First, let's take a look at the headlines. In Bangladesh, unidentified gunman shoots student leader Mottaleb Shikder in the head. This follows the death of Osman Hadi, a controversial leader who was shot in Dhaka last week. A car bomb kills a senior Russian general in southern Moscow. The blast came just hours after Russian and Ukrainian delegates held separate talks in Miami on a plan to end the war. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese apologises to the country's Jewish community over the Bondi Beach shooting. The attack targeted a Hanukkah event, killing at least 15 people. The Broadcast Authority in Guinea suspends news channel Africa 24 ahead of Sunday's presidential vote. The channel is the first international media outlet to be taken off the air by authorities. And Japan's flagship H3 rocket fails to launch a geolocation satellite into orbit due to engine failure. This comes after technical glitches delayed the original launch twice. Hello and welcome. Our top story is from South Africa. Another deadly shooting has shocked the country. The attack took place early yesterday morning. Gunmen opened fire at a bar in Beckersdale. It is a township near Johannesburg. The attack killed at least 9 people and injured 10 others. According to police, a group of around 10 suspects carried out the attack. Officers says the attack was out of the blue and completely unprovoked.
It's reported that it was plus minus 10 suspects, armed suspects. 9 of them had pistols and 1 had a AK-47 rifle. We found people enjoying themselves out of the blue, unprovoked. They attacked, randomly shot at people. It's a horrible thing. It's something which it's inhuman and cannot be allowed or tolerated. Therefore, those thugs and criminals who did this, we are not going to rest until we trace all of them.
Police say that 3 of the victims were killed inside the bar. The rest were killed while they were trying to escape. Officers said the attackers were randomly shooting at people left, right and centre. Police said that after shooting people, the attackers searched the victims and took their valuables. Eyewitnesses described the chaos they saw at the crime scene.
When we arrived at the scene, we opened the doors and indeed scores of people were lying on the floor. We rushed around and others were calling the police, and we also called the ambulance and they arrived. We had to carry some of the injured people using wheelbarrows to the clinic.
And this is the second such shooting incident to rock the country this month. Earlier, at least 11 people were killed in a mass shooting near the capital, Pretoria. One of the victims was a 3-year-old child. Such shootings are common in South Africa. Just last week, a famous South African DJ was shot dead in broad daylight. DJ Warris Stock was gunned down outside a building he had visited for some work. Earlier this month, a witness in a corruption inquiry was shot dead in front of his family on December the 5th. The victim was murdered just weeks after testifying against the municipal police chief. This high-profile murder reignited the debate about the targeting of whistleblowers. The country saw one of its worst mass shootings last year. In September 2024, 18 relatives were shot dead at a rural homestead in the Eastern Cape province. The youngest victim was barely 14 years old. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. Police data reveals how bad the situation is. On average, 63 people were killed each day between April and September. Reports say there were about 3 million legally held firearms in the country, and at least the same number of unlicensed weapons are also in circulation. South Africans have been pleading with the government to take steps to counter gun violence, but repeated incidents continue to dash their hopes of safer lives. And joining us to discuss this topic further is Otlo Magatli, a senior analyst at Control Risks, live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Welcome to Firstpost Africa.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have detailed the number of homicides in South Africa. Why do you think these figures are so high?
It's really unfortunate to note these issues. You know, the homicide rates in South Africa unfortunately reflect the structural flaws with regard to the socio-economic reality in the country. You mentioned inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Those are the three key issues related to the socio-economic situation in the country, as is dovetailing with that the prevalence and growth of organized crime in South Africa. This has rather become more pronounced due to the prevalence, as you mentioned, and growth of access to illegal firearms. Furthermore, and unfortunately, local policing capacities are stretched in South Africa, especially in high population density, low income areas such as these, for example, where this incident took place. Deterrence when it comes to issues such as these is also quite limited and is closely related to the prevalence of illegal firearms in these communities as well. So overall, issues and incidents such as these are all year-wide, countrywide realities, once again, especially in city-adjacent townships, such as where this incident unfortunately and tragically took place.
Yes, Sonotlo, I'd like to build on that. Do you think that the Ramaphosa government is doing enough to tackle gun crime and homicide? And what more does need to be done?
The Cyril Ramaphosa administration has acknowledged the scale of the problem and has indeed taken steps throughout his presidency, including in the previous dispensation before the government of national unity. Policing strategies do exist, firearm control enforcement strategies do exist, as on the ground rather, as do targeted operations. But unfortunately, with regard to an issue such as this, results on the ground remain extremely uneven. Police reform, which has been a long mooted and a long recommended issue, is unfortunately also quite inconsistent and slow. And gun control enforcement is patchy at best, particularly at provincial and, of course, local levels. Dovetailing with that, the justice system and policing system is overwhelmed due to the sheer mass of cases that the police system has to, and justice system itself has to deal with. So, you know, unfortunate incidents such as these means public perceptions and the incidents themselves often lag behind official and clear efforts, you know, to deal with the issue at hand.
Yes, Sonotlo, I'd like to finish by looking at the broader impacts now, the global impacts of mass shootings and homicides like what we've seen and just reported on. Of course, we know that Donald Trump has thrust the magnifying glass truly on South Africa with his rhetoric. But what do these persistent mass shootings do, and how do they impact South Africa on the global stage?
That's a fantastic question. And I must say, you know, mass shootings, unfortunately, reinforce the unfortunate perception of, as the aforementioned, weak governance and security nexus in the country. Yes, these sort of episodes do affect investor sentiment to some extent, as well as the ongoing diplomatic messaging in context with the current, you know, geopolitical environment, both between, for example, the United States and South Africa, and far beyond that. Investors and foreign governments, however, do note what was rather in this case a rather isolated, but of course extremely unfortunate incident in comparison to what could be construed as political instability, which of course remains quite limited in South Africa. Still, you know, incidents such as this, you know, do complicate investor sentiment, especially as, you know, the Pretoria faces closer scrutiny from partners like the United States under Donald Trump. But one could rather say that this incident affects reputation rather than fundamentals, South Africa's security fundamentals overall, which are of course quite well known. So one could say that the overall political risk impact itself is reputational rather than structural, due to the, one could say, isolated nature of this incident.
Yes, absolutely, Otlo. Thank you ever so much for your time and for joining us on Firstpost Africa.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll once again stay in South Africa, where a move by the Trump administration is reigniting a fresh race-based controversy. White South Africans could soon receive a Trump's children's book as part of a US welcome pack upon arrival in the country. This, as the Trump administration said they would be given priority for resettlement in the United States. The book is titled Donald Trump, Biography for Kids, an inspirational story of one of America's most famous presidents. It's an 89-page book for children between the ages of 8 and 12. The book portrays Donald Trump as an inspirational figure, describing his life as a lesson of resilience, confidence, and dreaming big. It covers his childhood in New York, his business success and failures, including the bankruptcy of the Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City, and key moments from his presidencies, from the US-Mexico border wall to the federal response to COVID-19. The book covers it all. There's also a chapter titled Challenges and Controversies, which mentions Trump's 2 impeachments and the January 6 attack on the US Capitol. Reports suggest the idea came from Fred Cooper. He is currently a Deputy Assistant Secretary at the US Department of Health and Human Services. According to reports, Cooper proposed including the book in a refugee welcome pack. Neither Cooper nor the department has publicly commented so far. But that's not it. Cooper also reportedly suggested including a biography of Andrew Jackson, America's 7th president. Jackson remains one of the most controversial figures in US history. He owned slaves and was responsible for forcing Native American tribes off their land. Donald Trump has on multiple occasions publicly praised Jackson, calling him a model of strong leadership. Refugee experts say this is highly unusual. Welcome materials typically explain basic US history, values and civic life. They do not promote specific presidents or political ideologies. That's why this proposal is drawing attention. And if these welcome packs are finalised, they would fit into a much larger policy shift under Trump. After returning to office in January, Trump froze refugee admissions from around the world. Weeks later, his administration launched a plan to prioritise white South Africans. Trump has repeatedly claimed they face race-based violence and discrimination in South Africa. The South African government has strongly rejected those claims. The country said that claims of systematic persecution are not supported by fact. President Cyril Ramaphosa has warned that false claims of white persecution pose a real danger.
Some in our society still adhere to notions of racial superiority and seek to maintain racial privilege. The vehement opposition by some groups to our policies of transformation and redress conveniently align with wider notions of white supremacy and white victimhood fed by false claims of the persecution of white Afrikaners in our country.
But official data shows that by early September, 138 South Africans had entered the United States. The Trump administration has set the total refugee cap at just 7,500 for the coming year, the lowest level on record. And in that, priority would be given to white South Africans. Democratic lawmakers in the US have called the move illegal and invalid, arguing Congress was never properly consulted. Refugee advocacy groups have also raised their concerns, saying the policy politicizes humanitarian protection. The tension is already playing out on the ground. Last week, South African authorities said they would deport Kenyan nationals contracted to work on the US refugee program. Officials said they were using improper visas. Meanwhile, on the streets of South Africa, reactions are loud. Some residents say the US is no longer a priority.
Literally, it's impossible, expense-wise, to actually even buy a ticket to go there, for me personally. So yeah, I'm quite happy in South Africa. I don't wish to go to America. You can restrict, it was already quite restricted, so nothing much is really changing.
It is disappointing, and as someone who would love to travel all around the world, including America, I have second thoughts now if I'll be welcomed as much as I welcome others.
As refugee policy becomes more political and race-focused, tensions between Washington and Pretoria continue to rise. For our next story, we head to Egypt, where economic and political ties between Russia and Africa have been under the microscope. Cairo hosted the second ministerial conference of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum. Over 2 days, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was joined by ministers from more than 50 African nations and regional organizations.
The economic and developmental dimension is a key focus of Africa-Russia cooperation, especially in light of the challenges facing many countries on the continent, in the areas of food security, energy security, infrastructure, and technology transfer.
Also on the agenda were regional and international discussion points, along with bilateral talks on the sidelines of the official forum.
With It's a good opportunity in the margins of the Russia-Africa Ministerial to sit down and to see what we are doing bilaterally, how we can further promote our cooperation, partnership and, of course, we will discuss some regional and international matters.
And this summit comes at a time of great potential for African nations and Russia. Moscow has faced Western isolation and sanctions following their offensive in Ukraine. And Africa has become a continent of opportunity for cooperation. Sergei Lavrov said that the world is witnessing Africa's second awakening. Meanwhile, African nations have turned their back on former colonial powers, instead turning to the likes of Russia and China for cooperation. Highlighted by Egypt's foreign minister.
Undoubtedly, the conference also provided an important opportunity to explore specific opportunities for strengthening cooperation between the Russian Federation and African countries.
And Lavrov specifically detailed how trade has increased between Russia and the African continent.
Last year, trade turnover increased by 13%, reaching $28 billion. I am confident that this is far from the limit. We are committed to further unlocking the vast potential of our practical cooperation.
Regional security was a key topic of discussion, including the Sudan civil war. The Sudanese Minister of Cabinet Affairs called for the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces to be classified as a terrorist organisation. Amid heightened military action in the continent, including terrorism, uprisings and civil war, Sergei Lavrov stressed that finding a sustainable resolution to conflict required addressing their root causes. He said that stemmed from the legacy of Western colonialism, and the Gaza war was also a point of discussion. All attendees agreed that lasting peace requires the implementation of a two-state solution. Egypt's foreign minister called for the establishment of a Palestinian state on the borders of June 4, 1967, with East Jerusalem as its capital. The forum set the stage for the drafting of a 2026 to 2029 strategic plan between Russia and Africa, while the unanimously adopted joint statement further strengthens growing cooperation. Whether it be defence, investment or trade, Russia is placing itself as the first option for African nations. And we end in the Sahel region, where 3 military-led countries have just launched an alliance which they claim is based on NATO's model. And these nations are Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. They have clubbed their militaries and called them the United Force of the Alliance of Sahel States. It was formally launched on Saturday at an air base in Bamako, the capital of Mali. Defence ministers from all 3 countries were present. Officials say the 5,000-strong unit is designed to fight Islamist insurgency and Al-Qaeda-linked terrorism. Its headquarters is based in Niamey, Niger's capital. The force will be commanded by Burkina General Douado Traoré. Officials say the alliance will combine air power, intelligence sharing and ground operations from all 3 countries. Their aim? To carry out coordinated cross-border strikes on insurgent groups that have killed thousands across the region. The new force also comes with a clear message to outside powers, especially France. This as officials in the Sahel Alliance have repeatedly criticised their former coloniser for what they describe as its failed military interventions. The new partnerships also come at a critical time, as France has reportedly started to deepen its ties with Nigeria. Earlier this month, Nigerian forces helped thwart a coup in neighbouring Benin. Nigeria said it acted at Benin's request and within regional security protocols. And France claimed to have provided logistical support in the Nigerian operation. Critics say that this did not sit well with the alliance. Reports suggest the alliance will operate independently of regional bloc ECOWAS-led structures. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have all withdrawn from ECOWAS. The grouping had initially imposed sanctions on all 3 nations, but later lifted them for Mali and Niger.
Burkina Faso, the Republic of Mali, the Republic of Niger have formally ceased to be members of the Economic Community of West African States. This followed the notification the Commission received from the 3 countries in January 2024 regarding their decision and intention to withdraw from the community.
In September, the trio also announced they were withdrawing from the International Criminal Court, calling it, and I quote, an instrument of neo-colonial repression.
The ICC has proven incapable of addressing and prosecuting verified war crimes, crimes against humanity, crimes of genocide, and crimes of aggression. Given this situation, the governments of Burkina Faso, the Republic of Mali, and the Republic of Niger, forming the Confederation of Sahel States, inform the confederal public opinion and the international community of their sovereign decision to withdraw from the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court.
But this comes at a time where international pressure is mounting. The United States has expanded travel restrictions on countries aligned with the alliance. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger now face full entry limitations, including visa suspensions over alleged security concerns. Meanwhile, violence linked to terrorism continues to spread in the Sahel region. According to the UN, the region now accounts for half of global deaths linked to terrorism. Reports also suggest terrorist groups have killed more than 77,000 people in more than 28,000 attacks since 2019. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso say they are now taking back control of their security and their future. Analysts say this new alliance may change how wars are fought in Sahel. What remains to be seen is if they crush insurgent attacks, or will the alliance ignite a bigger regional rift? We'll keep tracking all of the developments for you. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
4 do idioma.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.